A far-right think tank wants the DOJ to treat free speech as a foreign interference. They call it Project Esther, but it's really just a crackdown on dissent using religion as bait. Welcome back to Theocracy Watch, where we expose how Christian nationalism weaponizes faith to silence resistance and reshape democracy. This is Theocracy Watch. Project Esther from the Heritage Foundation is part of the broader Project 2025 plan to seize federal power. It targets protesters, creators, and even lawmakers who speak out against Israel's war on Palestine. The report calls on the DOJ to use FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, against Americans who show solidarity with Palestine. Mind you, AIPAC can spend millions shaping U.S. policy without registering. Kufi can mix worship and weapons deals like it's a Sunday service with no questions asked, but disagree with policy publicly, and you're the threat. Christian Zionist orgs coordinate with Israeli officials funding illegal settlements with no problem. Meanwhile, students, donors, journalists, and even content creators like you and I who addressed Christo-fascism face detainment, surveillance, or worse. Oddly, groups like the Proud Boys, KKK, Oath Keepers, armed, masked, terrorizing communities, and crickets? They named it Esther as if hijacking a Jewish story to justify repression isn't the most on-brand move imaginable. But we know it's not about faith. They're trying to control the narrative. And who are they kidding? The end goal isn't peace, it's fulfilling prophecy that just so happens to fill their wallets. Leaders like Huckabee, Pompeo, and Pence openly support policies meant to fulfill end times theology, including war in the Swana region, building a third temple, and global chaos that they believe will usher in Jesus. Pair that with the new anti-Christian discourse, and the strategy is clear. Criticize Christian power and you're anti-faith. And if you criticize Israel now, you're a terrorist. The First Amendment built this country, but apparently the Heritage Foundation now thinks dissent is tantamount to treason. And let's keep it a buck. All these end-time Looney Tunes are laser focused on making a buck and bringing back Daddy Jesus. Even if that means they have to criminalize peace and solidarity to do it, so be it. Project Esther is about paving the road to Armageddon and dragging the rest of us into the fire. So until next time, stay curious. This has been Theocracy Watch.
Wow. I'd never heard of Project Esther. Can one of you perhaps bring us up to speed on the story of Esther and the relevance?
Jason, you know it probably pretty well.
Yeah, so the story of Esther, it's one of those where, depending on which Bible you look at in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, it's going to kind of move around because different groups categorized it differently. But it's odd in that it is the only book in the entirety of the Hebrew Bible that makes no mention of God. It's a completely secular story. The whole point of it is that in the post-exilic period, during the Persian period, the Jews that were living in different Persian cities were facing the threat of becoming less Jewish, just influence from their surroundings, and they're being persecuted by some corrupt officials. And so the hero of the story, this woman named Esther, she manipulates some people into kind of getting her own way, and ultimately it leads in all of the villains of the story being brutally murdered. It's actually written as sort of like a comedy, which it sounds odd, there's like this, like tens of thousands of people are all, chopped up in a single day, all across the Persian Empire, but it's a comedy. There's like these weird, like comedic scenes, like when this,
I need to go see that, or
yeah, it would make a great stage production. But there's like this scene where it's like she's married to the king, and this court official comes in, and he's like trying to threaten her or something, and like she kind of like turns the tables on him, and he realizes that he's in trouble, and so he gets up on the couch where she is, and he's like on his knees, like pleading with her, and he's like pawing at her, like, please, don't tell the king this, or I'll get killed. And right then the king walks in and thinks that he's attacking his wife, and so then she's like, oh, look what he's doing, and the crowd goes wild because they get to boo the villain. And it's full of scenes like this. You can actually envision the thing as this almost like a Three Stooges sort of thing going on. And the whole thing is full of reversals. Like something happens, and then later in the story, the whole thing gets flipped on its head. All the Jews are facing extermination, but then at the end of it, it's their enemies who all get killed. And I did a whole episode on it. It's a great piece of Hebrew literature. But it's just a secular story that's meant to provide an ideological tale for a particular holiday that they started celebrating, during the Persian period. And they're like, well, the reason is because once upon a time, all the Persians were trying to kill us, and we ended up killing all of them. And then we did. Which
makes sense now.
Yeah,
That makes sense why they would use that name in their operation.
They're like, oh, we're worried about oppressors, so we're gonna go and commit some genocide.